This is a rebroadcast of an interview we conducted in 2017 with writer-researcher Eddie Brazil, who sadly passed away yesterday on the 20th of May 2026. Eddie was well known in the ghost hunting community, particularly for his research into Borley Rectory, but was also an author in his own right as well as a photographer. It's very sad news that he had passed away, so in dedication to his memory, we are replaying this original interview we conducted with Eddie in his home. We hope you enjoy this interview, as it was very much off the cuff and it was a very enjoyable conversation I had with Eddie on a summer's afternoon. Eddie Brazil was a remarkable man and he will be sadly missed.
Listening to The Special Interviews with your hosts Kerry Greenaway and Andy Mercer.
Good evening and welcome to The Special Interview. My name is Kerry Greenaway and on this occasion I was joined by Mr. Andy Mercer and Mr. Richard Clements as we visited High Wycombe and to visit Eddie Brazil and his family. Now, Eddie made us so very, very welcome and we had an absolute blast. So big thank you to Eddie and Sue for being so welcoming and we hope you enjoy. Hello, Eddie.
Hello.
How are you?
It's lovely to be here.
No, it's absolutely fantastic to be here. Thank you so much for having us and thank you for coming onto the radio.
Pleasure.
So would you be able to tell us a little bit about what you do? Because you're a writer, aren't you, predominantly?
Yes, writer, paranormal investigator, photographer. I don't know, the writing has only come about in the last 8 years since Paul and I got together and we thought we'd do look again at the Borley story.
That's right, yeah.
But I don't know, a writer, do you think I'm a writer, dear? Yes. I don't look at myself as a writer, no.
Of course you're a writer.
You are a writer,
No.
you're very good at it as well.
No. I'm an author who's written some books. That's about it, on the paranormal. Yeah.
Well, keep doing it. Whatever it is you do it very, very well. Because you've written several books, haven't you?
Borley Rectory Companion, Shadows in the Nave, Haunted High Wycombe, Extreme Hauntings.
Yeah.
Britain's Most Terrifying Ghosts. And at the moment, I think Paranormal is out of favour because the publishers are not asked us to write books on ghosts. At the moment, I'm doing a book on High Wycombe, and it's old photographs juxtaposed with modern ones and all that. And, and a history of the best places in Bucks, you know.
Yeah.
But that's about it. Yeah. But yeah, I suppose I'm a writer on the paranormal. Yeah.
Yeah, you most certainly are. Now, you mentioned Paul. This is Paul Adams, who wrote The Enigma of Rosalie, that we did an interview with a couple of months ago now, I believe it was, when we met at the SPR that time. And I actually saw your book there, the Borley Rectory Companion, which is really what I wanted to talk to you about, because it's quite fascinating and it fitted very nicely in with the evening that we had there, which was to do with Harry Price. So could you just tell me, to start with, a little bit of the history of Borley Rectory?
Oh, right, yes. Borley Rectory was built in 1863 by Reverend Henry Ball, has his wife, and I think they had 14 children.
Whoa, that's a lot of children.
Yeah. Soon after, reports of ghostly apparitions were reported, the Phantom Nun, the Phantom Coach, and stuff like this, and it had quite a reputation of being haunted. I mean, if you looked at the house, you think, oh my God, that's a haunted house.
Yeah.
But so he, with his son Harry Ball, would build a summer house in the garden. They would wait in the evening to see if they could catch glimpses of the nun and stuff like this. The Ball family die out. Subsequent rectors come in. Reverend Smith and his wife, they report Paranormal Phenomena, they reported to the Daily Mirror. They sent down Harry Price. He starts to investigate it. The Smiths move out. The Foysters move in. They report paranormal phenomena. Stay for 5 years, and it's the apex of the haunt, as it were, because you have poltergeist phenomena and so on and stuff like that. They move out. Price moves in, rents the place for a year, and he has an army of 48 observers. They report phenomena, and they in 1937 there was a séance held at a house in Streatham in London, where an entity calling itself Sunnax and Muirs, saying, "I will burn down the rectory tonight," but it was a year later, 1939. In February, the rectory goes up in flames. This is after Price had moved out. Captain Gregson moved in and bought the property. He put in an insurance claim. They was rejected, and the house was beyond repair, and it was demolished in 1944.
Now,
and the haunting has carried on since then.
oh, so there's still activity reported at Borley?
Yeah. When Paul and I were researching the companion, we interviewed people in the village, and they didn't want to be identified because there's lots of bad feeling. I mean, you get crazy people going to Borley, and
I've heard stories of coachloads of American tourists turning up. Mason's it's a small village. And
Yeah,
the rectory?
I mean, it is
Gone.
very small. I've been to Borley, and it is small, isn't it?
It's tiny, it's just a hamlet.
That's it. Yeah, it's not.
What we were told, I won't name the people. They were moving out. They were selling their house last time we spoke to them. But they didn't know anything about the haunting, and they came through the village when they saw this bungalow for sale, which was practically next to where the rectory stood.
Yeah.
Bought it, and they had the two kids started to play with imaginary friends at night. And one of the guys, George, he said, "Who are they playing with?" I said, "We don't know." So, but anyway, carried on. And they had a piano in the front room, and at night they would hear the piano playing. Honestly, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But George, he didn't believe in ghosts. He didn't know anything about Borley Rectory and all that. But he was in the kitchen one day doing something, and he wanted his wife to come in. She was out in the garden, in the front garden. Mm-hmm. So he's in the kitchen, and he's looking down from the kitchen to the hallway and the front door, and he's calling for her. And out the corner of his eye, he sees what he thinks is her come into the house.
Yeah.
And he's shouting at her because he thinks she's in the room, in the house, but she's still out in the garden. He was convinced he saw her come in. And he went into the front room, there's nobody there. So he said to me, you keep seeing figures out of the corner of your eye in this place. And his wife, she was one night watching TV, lounging on the settee, and he came home from work, George, and he said, "Will you go and get a takeaway?" So he went to Sudbury. So she's still watching television. He's taking his time, and she said, "Where has he gone to?" And out the corner of her eye, there's a person standing right next to her.
Right.
And she turned around and said, "You took your time, and the person has vanished." So when they told us this, I mean, she said she walks in her garden, which is the old rectory lawn,
Okay.
and she can hear whisperings and footsteps and stuff like that. And these are two people who have no interest in ghosts.
And that you find that quite a lot, don't you? It's almost those people that haven't got that belief system that have experiences, as well as the people that believe and go out looking for it. Do you know what I mean? So it's not niched, as it were. So it's not because you're out there looking for it, you see it. It's people that aren't even expecting it, don't even, really believe in it, and then they have these experiences and these, these things happen.
What I found in researching paranormal phenomena is you will never ever see a ghost if you go consciously looking for it. because you've already conditioned your mind to expect something to happen. It will never happen. Most ghost sightings are of when people go into a house and they'll see somebody or experience something, and what was that?
Yeah, it's an unexpected thing.
I would just throw in, I've been doing this myself again for 30 odd years, and for a long period of time, every weekend, and I have seen a number of phenomena for definite, but a very small number, and I'm talking tens of thousands of hours of doing this. So you're right, most of the time, but it's people who don't expect to see things. You occasionally do if you go out looking, but the number of times people say they've seen something, you can find an easy explanation of what they're claiming they've seen, and you've been there with them.
Yeah.
But there's very rare occasions where you definitely have real phenomena occur. But yeah, most of the time you don't even notice it.
But we've spoken about this plenty of times before when you're investigating. To go in with a really serious, formatted mindset is not always the best way to do it. To go in and actually relax and, have a chat, have a laugh and raise that energy and just be normal, because that's more inviting to spirit than it would be if you was going, is anybody there? And we've talked about this quite a lot, of just being natural. That's more likely to be where you'll experience something.
We've said many times, it's mindset, isn't it? If you go in with a certain mindset or your expectation, rarely is it met. If you just go in open mind, if something happens, great. If it doesn't, well, so what?
The best example of that I know is, you've heard of Shingle Hall up in Lancashire. That's got the title now of the most haunted house in England.
Yes.
They had a film crew go there and spent a week, because they heard the stories, we can obviously see a ghost and something like this, and after 5 days, nothing. And they said, well, this is pointless, we'll pack up and go home. And one guy went to get his gear from the bedroom, and he walked into the bedroom and he heard footsteps in the corridor, and he just looked out. And there was a monk standing at the end of the corridor, and he just turned and just walked through a wall. So, I mean, they probably are turned off from expecting ghosts.
Yeah.
So therefore, they're more receptive.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely we're all starting in the field to start realising the power of the mind and switching it off and being more relaxed and just accepting the atmosphere and being more open to it, rather than trying to almost manifest it from your own mind, because you're so focused on seeing what you want to see or getting the activity you want to get. Because there is that thought now that we're actually manifesting some activity from our minds ourselves.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I'll show you a photograph in a moment that I took at Borley in 1972, and I was 16. I went there on my own, and nobody about, and I was taking photographs of the churchyard and rectory site. And when I got the photos back, it was in them days when you had Instamatic cassettes. 12 frames on the one.
We remember those days, don't we, guys?
All the 11 of them were fine, but one of them had a figure in the churchyard, and I thought, my God, what's that? And I showed it to my dad, and he said, you photographed a ghost. And I thought, I didn't see anything at the time.
Yeah.
So, no, and I'll show you the photograph, and we can put it up on your website later.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it was only been published a few years back, about 7 years ago, in Paranormal magazine, wasn't it, Sue?
Yeah, actually, I think it was.
And Paul, he done a great article on it, Paul did, the Brazil Borley photograph. Now, whether or not I photographed a ghost is debatable, but whether or not I was thinking I would love to see a ghost and somehow imprinted that image onto the photograph, because have you ever seen one of the most famous photographs of the monk at Newby Church?
Yes.
Oh yes.
Now Peter Underwood knew that, the Reverend Lord who took that photograph, and it looks like a medieval monk, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
But the church is not medieval. It's a Victorian Gothic church. You think, well, what would a medieval monk be doing in a Victorian church? So you come up and you think, hang on, did Reverend Lord subconsciously put an image onto his slide that he wanted to be there, because they examined it and it's not a fake or a forgery, but you do have this thing that looks like a monk standing on the altar.
Yeah.
You know, and it's I sometimes wonder if the photograph I took at Borley is something similar to that, because people have criticised it and said it's a watermark. But why would a watermark resemble what had been reported at Borley over the years?
Oh yeah, just there.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And it's straight away. You don't have to ring it. Like a lot of photographs these days they have put on and they ring it so you don't miss
It
it.
stops at the fence.
Yeah.
Suggesting it's behind the fence.
Yeah. So I'm saying it's like the
If it was a
head
watermark,
bound, isn't
wouldn't
it?
It'll be over the fence, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be all
Fully visible.
It'd be all the way through.
So I can get a good little zoom on that. Just a section. Oh no, it's going to reflect me back, unfortunately.
Can I take it out the plastic?
Yeah,
I mean, I can send you an email of that if you want it.
I just want to get it for myself.
No, I'm alright at the minute, thank
You
you.
sure?
It's a real focused in.
Is that Dex?
Probably.
Yeah, there's no sign at all of that going in front of the fence. It stops, and it's again, if the watermark, it would be oval. It wouldn't be straight flat across.
No.
There's no deviation in the depth or the grayness along there at all. No, that certainly looks like it's something that's.
On that day, I remember it because it was in September '72, and it was a really grey and sultry day, and I thought I better get back to Sudbury, and I started to walk, and it started to rain. I thought, oh God, no! And a car drew up. It was a taxi, and he said, "You going to Sudbury?" And I said, oh, "I've got no money to pay." And he said, "No, it's all right. I'll give you a lift." And the guy told me a story that his dad was a warden at the church, and he went there one Sunday morning to prepare for the day, unlocked the church door and went to push it open, and it was pushed back.
Oh.
He went, what? And he'd done it again, and it was pushed back, and this happened like 4 times until he put his shoulder. He said it wasn't stuck. There wasn't no walking of the wood.
Yeah.
There was a definite pushing back.
Somebody's pushing it back, yeah.
And he got in, there was nobody there.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, the church obviously is a site of today. People go to Borley, it's in the site of the rectory, but they experience stuff in the church.
Well, there is the nun, isn't there, that's supposed to walk between the rectory and the church?
Yeah. The nun was never ever seen in the rectory. It's only in in the garden,
In the grounds.
in the grounds.
Yeah.
And sometimes in the church. That actually, she was seen in the north side of the churchyard. Well, a woman, the ghost of a woman, was seen. There was a guy who went to Borley one day, very blustery day, walked around the north side of the church and saw a figure of a woman by a bush. Went up to speak to her, she just vanished in front of him.
Yeah.
A vicar who came to read the lesson of a friend he knew had died, has been buried at Borley, was standing in the church, and the south door was open, and he just looked, and he saw a figure of a woman dressed as a nun just go past the door, and he went outside and she's not there.
Not there, gone.
Yeah.
So why do you think Borley in particular has got all this activity there?
I think, and Colin Wilson, who did the foreword for our book, the great Colin Wilson, who's sadly now gone, he thought the actual ground of Borley was psychically charged. That any building that was there, be it the rectory or a church or a bungalow, would be subject to paranormal phenomena. And I think he's right, because, as I say, that the people are still experiencing ghosts at Borley, and there is even before the rectory was built. I mean, the previous rectory, they didn't report any paranormal phenomena, but there is a flimsy account of the nun being seen in 1843.
Right.
It's 20 years before the rectory is built. So perhaps it's that for some reason that area is conducive to paranormal phenomena. I think it's just a theory that that Borley Church doesn't have a dedication, but I think it's to St Michael, when pre-Christian days in Britain, pagan religions and stuff like this, and ley lines and stuff like. There's one researcher who's discovered that there's nodal points, and they cross.
That's right. Yeah.
Borley churchyard.
Oh, okay.
So when you get the crossing of these ley lines, paranormal activity is heightened.
Yeah.
Now I think that ancient ancestors knew about this, and when you had the introduction of Christianity into Britain, the remit was adapt their festivals, so Christmas, Saturnalia, the Yule log, the holly and the ivy and stuff like that.
Yeah, it all gets incorporated in, doesn't it?
Yeah, but they probably, there was obviously a place of worship at Borley before the church. Possibly because of where these lines intersect. So to stamp out this pagan belief, you build a church and you dedicate it to a saint who will be the slayer of dragons, because these ley lines were also called dragon paths.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
In the Bible, who is the slayer of dragons? St. Michael.
Yeah.
So you got, most hilltop churches in England are dedicated to St. Michael.
St. Michael.
So I think that that the idea, I think it was dedicated to St. Michael, and that dedication is to say Christianity can defeat this kind of pagan nonsense. This is the new order of worship in England now. So yeah. But the very fact that these lines intersect, I mean, whether or not you can prove it scientifically, probably not. But it would give an idea of why you get so much paranormal activity at Borley. And not, I mean, you go down the road, a mile down the road, there's
nothing at all.
It's a theory we've talked about previously.
Yeah, we have.
Sorry.
Right, so just areas around the world that are these kind of hotspots. I mean, I've talked a lot about a place called Woodchester Mansion in Gloucestershire. The level of activity you get there is phenomenal. But again, it's the third building on the site, and the previous buildings have had reports, and some of the stuff you see at Woodchester is linked to the previous buildings. So you've definitely got these places around the world.
So let's go back to, is it Chingle or Shingle Hall?
Shingle.
Shingle Hall. If I recall rightly, wasn't there a screaming skull there? The reason I mentioned that is because there was a skull that was found at Borley. It wasn't a screaming skull though, was it? It was just a skull.
Yeah, Mrs. Smith found it in a cupboard one day.
Just a cupboard?
Yeah, she was doing some housework and opened this cupboard and there was a skull in it. And nobody knew where it had come from.
That is a strange thing. I was going to say, you would think you would have noticed that beforehand, wouldn't you?
But there's a skull, with a shot. I mean, she was a bit flaky, I think, Mrs. Smith, because she wanted Harry Price to help her get a book published, like Murder at the Parsonage.
Oh, okay.
And when he couldn't, she retracted all her evidence, I suppose you'd call it. Said that it was never haunted, and it was a direct attack on Price because he wouldn't help her, But I think that the best part, the best period of Borley is the Foyster period.
Yeah.
Because it's more than just a ghost story. It's a fantastic human drama. If you find out about the life of Marion Foyster.
Yeah.
And all the naughtiness that were going down at Borley at the time. A lot of people read the books, unless they read The Widow of Borley and our book,
to
find out what she was really about. I do think she was generally psychic, but she wrote on the walls. There was, you look at the handwriting of the wall messages. It's her handwriting, but whether or not she was doing it in a trance-like state, I don't know. But they say she was bored with this rural backwater, and she wanted to get away. And you get a person like Frank Peerless turns up, Francois Dals. He's the handyman. Apart from the ghosts, what appeals to me about Borley is this soap opera that was going on as well.
Yeah.
And they became lovers with the approval of the Reverend Foyster. And there's some evidence to say that he was a voyeur. He would like to watch.
Oh, okay.
There was Richard Whitehouse, who came to, but he was a friend of the friends of the Foysters, Sir George and Lady Whitehouse. He was a nephew, and he was a Dominican monk. He would visit Borley during this period, but he had kind of designs on Marion, and he probably was bisexual, and he had designs on Reverend Foyster as well. And the Price hints at it in his book about what was going on. Obviously, because of slander laws and all that, he couldn't publish it. But after these main characters had died, this stuff started to come out. He would, Reverend Foyster would leave Marion and Richard alone in the bedroom while he popped over to the church and stuff like this. And
it's very scandalous, isn't it? This is a side to Borley that people don't normally hear about.
No,
Absolutely.
I mean about the Reverend Henry Ball and impregnating the maids.
That was quite common though back in the day, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was almost like too much for temptation. Then once the maid got pregnant, they would get cast out. And
but I love it because you couldn't write stuff like Borley because the Reverend Ball, he only wore clerical garb on a Sunday. The rest of the week he was a squire, and if the local children or the servants and all that didn't, yes sir,
yeah,
he would they wouldn't get their Christmas box. He preferred to be a hunting shooting squire rather than a clergyman. And at the back of that, you've got this ghost story going on.
Yeah.
Which is brilliant, I think.
Yeah. Now, I read a really strange story about Borley a little while ago, and it was called The Bug of Borley Rectory.
What, the insect?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, allegedly, this was an artist that was painting Borley Rectory, and she was sat in the garden for quite an extensive time, a nice warm day, and she had almost like I don't know how you would explain it. It's almost like a time slip, but dimensional time slip is how she explained it, and that was quite strange, I thought. And I wanted to ask you whether you'd heard about that story because I read it in a magazine quite a long time ago, and it was one of those where I read it was like, really, one of those kind of moments. But a really strange type bug came out of came towards her, almost like to attack her, didn't it? And it was quite a strange thing. So I just wanted to ask you about that because I know you're an expert on Borley. You've obviously read about that before.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it was in the summer of. The rectory was empty, and she asked Price. I think it was during the Price tenancy. Could she go and do a drawing of the house? And she sat in the garden. It was all overgrown, and if you imagine the Borley Rectory garden, huge, untended. God knows what kind of insects you're going to get in there. But she said we're going to paint. There was no one else about. Hot sunny afternoon, and this thing came at her. I think it was probably one of the May bugs. Yeah. But an oversized one, Yeah. And because she knew the reputation of the house, saw this, it must be paranormal. But it's interesting. I mean, it's just another.
It's another dimension to the story, isn't it? There's so much weird stuff that happens around there. I mean, I was thinking when I read that the paint, possibly going back in the time, maybe in the sun, had released fumes that maybe had set her off on maybe a bit of a hallucinogenic. A normal sized bug had come towards her, kind of thing. But because she was like in this state,
I don't know. I mean, it's interesting and it's fun, but whether or not
I know. I did want to mention it because it was quite a weird story of all the stories.
She possibly dozed off, couldn't she?
Yeah, or even gone into almost like a meditative state when she was painting, and then
she's sort of like in the zone, aren't you?
Yeah, trancing out a little bit. But I did read this story, and I thought, I will mention it because you never know.
I love it. But the one quote I love is from M.R. James, the great ghost story writer, and when he was asked about the paranormal, and he said, "Believe me, these things are true, but we don't know the rules."
True.
And stuff what Sue mentioned there, it could be, it's paranormal. It's paranormal. It's outside the realm of normal activity. we don't know how these. I mean, we assume that because somebody's died, will come back to the house that once lived in and haunt it. But we don't know. We will probably never know how that process is happening. I mean, Paul, Peter, and I we disagreed when we were researching the companion. We disagreed on the nature of ghosts, and I bowed to Peter because of his 50 years.
Amazing person, yeah.
But Paul disagrees with this because he went to an SPR lecture on the very thing. It's called non-locality theory. You ever heard of it?
No, I haven't heard of that. Could you explain that a little more for me, please?
Basically, I think it's a theory of mind and brain are separate, or consciousness and the physical brain are separate. That consciousness acts through the physical brain, but it's not part of it. I suppose the analogy would be a radio or a television. The television is the nuts and bolts, which is the physical brain.
Yeah.
But consciousness is the signal.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Going into the TV, radio or brain. If you was to destroy the television or the radio, the brain,
yeah,
you wouldn't necessarily destroy the signal. Consciousness.
Yeah. That's a really good analogy, actually.
So you'd have it would carry on until it was picked up by another brain that could access it. If you have physical death, but not death of consciousness.
Yeah.
Somebody goes into a house where somebody's died, but that consciousness somehow lingers. So they walk into a room and they can access it. Their brain will access it or hear something.
So they're linking into the signal of the other consciousness.
Yeah, because a lot of there's more cases of phantoms of the living on SBI records than there are of ghosts. And phantoms of the living are extraordinary. I'll give an example of I don't know, when Colin Wilson, his secretary, was going to a meeting in St Austell in Cornwall, very important meeting, and she was late. She was in a traffic jam and never moving. She thought, oh, I'm going to be late, missing it, getting really stressed out and fractious. She got to the meeting 20 minutes late, and as she walked into the office, her two colleagues said, "Where did you go to?" She says, "What do you mean?" She said, 10 minutes ago we saw you come into the office and then walk back out again. She said, "No, I've been in a traffic jam." She said, "No, we saw you." I think because of the stress and the need to get to this meeting, she managed to convey an image of herself to her colleagues, which you could arguably say is a kind of a living ghost.
Yeah.
So if the non-locality theory is correct, and consciousness and the signal still remain after bodily death, we might have a theory of what a ghost is.
Yeah.
That someone is picking up that signal. The signal could be weak, it could be strong, and it depends on whether or not you're psychically up there to receive it. Loads of people went to Borley Rectory and saw nothing.
Yeah.
Other people went there and experienced the whole gamut of stuff.
Yeah.
Because they're tuned in.
You can leave this and I'll take it out, it depends. It's happened to me. I've been the one that's been seen elsewhere.
Really?
Many years ago I was staying over in Canvey Island, funny enough, and I was there for
My
the
neck of the
weekend
woods.
with my girlfriend. I was staying in different rooms. Her grandma and her were in the kitchen when I was outside in the garden shed. I was just watching around. They said, "You walked in, you walked straight past us, looked through us and walked into the next room." And Nan followed her in and said, "You went in there." And then 10 minutes later I walked into the garden. And they said they both saw me and said, "You walked straight past us, ignored it. What's wrong?" The man walked in, thought you climbed up a window or something because you weren't there. She thought you were acting funny. And then 10 minutes later I walked in from the garden. And so I've been actually done that.
But deathbed manifestations are really
Lots of
common as well, aren't they? Where the point of where someone's at that just before they die, they've been seen by a relative or somebody like that.
Yeah. I think that that the theory of poltergeist is unconscious frustration of
Yeah, I agree with you.
teenager and stuff like that.
Well, the more we've looked into poltergeist, we've
Well, that's
decided
more or
that
less sort of like, I think of all the paranormal phenomena, I mean, poltergeistism, whatever you like to call it, if serious money was invested, I think they could actually sort of
prove it.
Yeah.
To be fair, no, I agree, because we've looked at pre or puberty in children. You know, boys as well as girls, I think, because I think boys go through puberty as well, don't they?
Yeah.
Not to the level that girls do, but they still hit a puberty level. Then you've got, we looked at menopause with ladies, because it's almost like a puberty on the other side of the coin. It's like going backwards.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There seems to be
a link.
change, sort of involved.
Yeah, and when you've got highly emotive situations.
Just saying, in the mind, in sense, because,
I don't know, Andy.
It heightens the receptors in the brain, I would imagine.
Well, your brain does suddenly go through massive spurts of growth in puberty, which of course means the brain's rewiring itself very rapidly and it can cause all sorts of sparks of energy. I'm absolutely convinced of that, definitely. But I was going to tell you a quick story actually about the psychological happenings and physiological effect of psychological states. Because I'm a psychotherapist, obviously I work with a client who gets upset. Sometimes you get odd noises around, but there was one guy, every time he got upset my ceiling cracked. Every time there was a burst of his emotions, and it's loud, and it was dozens of times. Not just once or twice, dozens of times.
Yeah,
So
but
that's
yeah.
like-
I mean, the Rosenheim poltergeist, getting back to poltergeist, I mean, the classic case is Enfield, isn't it?
Oh, Enfield Haunting
Yeah.
is the classic one.
Well, that's the one.
I met him, Guy Playfair. He's I mean, he's when we done a talk at the SBR, Paul, Peter and I, he turned up to listen to it, and he looked like he'd just come straight from Aldermaston with his duffel coat, you know, and his C&D badge and stuff. But he was a lovely chap, and we had dinner together, and he was very interested in a new book,
What's that?
Shadows in the Night. Yeah, I proposed it to History Press, and I said, do you like a book called Shadow in the Nave? And he said, can you call it Shadows in the Nave? I said, yeah. I said, why? He said, we've got a series. We've got Shadows on the Water, Shadows in the Steam about haunted railway lines,
Oh, right.
Shadows in the Sky about, I think, UFOs and stuff. So, but I love doing that book. It was one of my favourites, and it just always sells well.
It's really selling well, isn't it?
Yeah, and I love doing the photographs for it. I love church architecture anyway. It's one of my
Oh, so you've done
passions.
this in conjunction with Peter Underwood as well?
And Paul Adams, yeah.
Ed started writing with him. It's Peter Underwood. Yeah.
I wrote, and I started to correspond with him, and he was great. I thought he would ignore me, and I just put Peter Underwood Savage Club, London, and I sent him that photograph. And he said, "Yes, thank you, Edward." Or, you know. And then we started to correspond, and when Paul and I decided to do Companion, I said, "Do you think get Peter to do an introduction?" And I wrote to him, and he remembered me. I was stunned. And he said, yes, I'd love to do the introduction. And he started to give us photos and documents, and Paul said, why don't we ask him to come on board? And we said, would you like to join us? He said, yeah, I'd love to. So all his archive material of Borley that made the book go to another place. And it was great. And when we went to meet him, it was nerve-wracking. The first time you go to meet your God.
Yeah.
And it was in the Savage Club in London.
Oh, yeah.
The Liberal Club. And he took us to dinner and bought us drinks and all that. And he's a fantastic man. I really miss him. He was, and he moved down to Hampshire, and he invited us down, Sue and Bex and
Sorry, actually, wasn't it? Hampshire?
Hampshire,
Sorry,
Hazelmere. Is it Hazelmere? Sorry, I don't know.
Yeah,
What's
yeah.
Hampshire, I don't know. But he downsized and he moved into this little flat and walked in and saw his collection of books.
Oh.
You know.
The first time I met him, we did you did a trip to Borley, you and Paul. And
Yeah,
Walter wanted to go because it was the first time he'd been in.
We took him back to Borley for the first time the last time he was there was in 1973 with the Ghost Hunters documentary. And he hadn't been back since. And I asked him, would you like to come?
Yeah.
And he said, he said to his son, I don't know if I should go. And his son said, no, go, you'll enjoy it. So we picked him up in London, drove out there, and there was Ghost Club members all there.
It's about 15 people.
And we had a fantastic day.
We did.
Were you involved in, you say back in the early 1970s, when there was some information recorded on audio from inside Borley Church?
Yeah.
There was was it a radio documentary or was it a TV?
There was two actually.
Someone running up the aisle,
walking up the aisle.
Steps.
and then
Yeah.
going through the I don't know, the swing gate or something.
The chancel,
Yeah.
chancel gate. Yeah. That was included in the '73
Come on, darling.
documentary,
Come on.
TV documentary, which
Come on,
Peter
sweetheart.
took part in with Hugh Burnett,
Yeah.
and I've got the documentary here, you know.
Yeah.
And it was called Ghost Hunters, and they went around the country interviewing people who like what we do today. And they ended up at Borley with Peter, and they went into the church and they blanked out the screen, and they said that what you're going to hear now is sort of recorded by a team that was headed by, oh my goodness, I forget his name now, but since that recording's been broadcast, this guy he's dead now, but he's a bit dubious about his investigations. But they recorded footsteps walking up the nave aisle, and a human sigh.
Yeah, side, and that's what I can remember. Some sort of or something like that.
There's some it really kind of
It's
like
available
desperate.
on YouTube. Yeah. I think
And also that somebody opened a lock. But Peter told us that they went round, him and the film crew, and they could replicate every sound that was recorded on the film. But there's a separate tape where another group of researchers went into the church, and they locked the tape recorders into the church, and went away. And they came back. They didn't pick up anything on the first recordings, but they left a tape recorder in the porch, left it running, and came back some hours later, and all the tape had been ripped out of it.
Oh,
But they kept an eye on the porch. Nobody had gone in there,
yeah.
and then they decided to actually hold the vigil in the church. And I've got an audio recording of that. You might be able to get it on YouTube, I don't know, but you hear the three guys talking to each other, and they're just generally very cold, as in blah blah blah. And one says, "Can you see what I'm seeing?" He said, "Yeah, it's a pinprick of light, isn't it?" And he said, "Yeah, it's coming towards us, isn't it?" I said, "Yes, we can all see it, can't we?" And then all of a sudden there's an almighty clatter of something being thrown across the church, and you can hear the genuine shock, you know, like,
Yeah.
my goodness, what's that? I think that was separate from the.
I'm familiar, with actually both those recordings, and I think I can remember watching it years ago, back on Nationwide or something like
Yeah.
that. I mean, it sort of made the papers and the press at the time.
Yeah, Hugh Burnett. I think he came away. Peter told us that he came away convinced. He was a skeptic before he went to Borley.
Yeah.
But he came away changed. He said, "Okay, yeah, I accept that something goes on. We don't know what it is." Peter didn't know what it was we were researching, looking for.
Yeah.
You know, most ghost hunters, the idea is we go to a haunted house to investigate. There's a ghost in it. I said, okay, what is a ghost? It's the spirit of a dead person come back to haunt the house. That's too simplistic.
Absolutely.
You know.
Yes,
I had
agreed.
a conversation in the week with somebody actually.
Yeah, it's far
We
too
can't say what these
simplistic.
things are. We call them ghosts, but we don't know what the hell they actually are.
Exactly.
To use that single, that's the Victorian definition, and we're in the 21st century. We need to broaden, except there's a possibility of one explanation, but by no means the only explanation. And this is often the problem we end up in discussing, is that we don't define what we mean. So
Yeah.
you need to set the terms first before you actually discuss what you actually think of the term. But yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
because people criticise me. I'm sure they criticise all of us.
Well,
If they find out you're a ghost hunter,
Yeah.
they said, "You believe in ghosts?"
Yeah.
And you say, "Oh God, do I have to explain this?" You know?
Yeah,
And you-
it's so simplistic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like if you say you're a paranormal investigator, and then they sort of look at you and go, "I'm a Ghostbuster." Just put it down as that. Do you know what I mean? Because you don't want to have to keep doing the long explanation every single time.
Because I get criticism from my brother-in-law. He's an MBE, my brother-in-law.
Oh, okay.
He's a wing commander in the RAF.
Okay.
Honestly, and he's estranged from Sue's sister. But when he sees his son, he said, "His head's still searching for ghosts," as a joke and all that. And I'd love to sit him down, and I love, the four of us, five of us, sit him down and explain to him what is going on.
Yeah.
Because ghosts are not, they're not they come out from the dungeon with the clanking chains and all that.
No, we've moved on far from that, haven't we? That perception.
The treasurer's house.
Oh yes.
Harry Minder. The classic example of a stone tape apparition.
Yes, I agree.
Down a couple of times.
Now,
Yeah.
do you want to explain that a little bit more? This is in York, isn't it? You're talking about. You talk about the Romans walking on the road, but it was inches under. You could only see it from the ankle or something up because the road at the time would have been lower.
Because
But it's never been reported since. As well, it's never been reported since. So only at that moment.
Prior to
People have seen
Mindale.
things happening, yes.
Yeah.
But that full march through the Royal, he said.
Yeah.
Because I mean,
Been there.
He's 17 Martindale. He's up the ladder. He's doing work. Hears a trumpet. Thinks it's a radio. Looks to his left, and a horse's head comes out of the wall. And I mean. Well, you must imagine what is he thinking? Is somebody playing a joke?
It's one of those frozen in moment times because you can't believe what you're seeing because it's so unbelievable in the circumstance that you're in. You can't equate it to anything else, can you? So you are literally at that fright or flight freeze moment.
Interesting, we get a moment of how urban mythology develops because that's very much what the tour guide told us. But you're right, I remember reading that. It was about the ladder. And the horse went past, but that tour guide said that it was when he was digging in the floor, when he hit the Roman floor. That's when the apparition started. So it's interesting that even in the confines of the actual story of the event at Treasurer's House, mythology is building up, alternate versions are building up, folklore is building up about what actually happened. It's a great example of how these things get changed very, very quickly, very, very easily.
Yeah, because he fell off the ladder and he hid in a corner and he watched. And the thing I love is that he could hear murmuring, he could hear voices. And I think you could hear the clop of the horse.
Yes.
But you couldn't see. It's only when they reached the level of the Roman road, because where he was working in that cellar, that was the road into, it would have been called Eboracum at the time, the old name for York. And these were troops coming back from a patrol. They've gone through, the last one has come through, and he's freaked and run.
Right, 20 years before he'd go back down there again.
It is one of those moments.
Yeah, on the Willem Woolard programme, very good. But
he actually sort of went to the sketch artists because he was a bit puzzled because they didn't look like sort of what he thought the classical Roman would look like sort of dressed in all the plate sort of armour and stuff like that. But I do like my history, and they actually draw up. They had chainmail on. They were basically auxiliary, which the bulk of the Roman army was made up of, auxiliaries and not legions.
Because the shape, he identified the shape of the
shields were oval,
and it had a bulbous head on it. And some Roman historians said, no, that's wrong. Until somebody pointed out, said, no, auxiliaries stationed in north.
This is the amazing thing. How on earth could he have known this?
Exactly. And if you're getting your history, I suppose, from what you see and what you read and stuff like that, it is the Roman centurions, with the regalia and the cat head thing and, the Mohican thing. It's the traditional image. When you think Romans, that's what you see, or a Roman soldier. It's very Hollywood.
That's a misnomer. They never wore it like that. It was. You wouldn't notice. Yeah. It was a cross, wasn't it? The
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah, you'd wear it.
It was horizontal, was it? Not not vertical.
Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
See, I didn't know that.
You saying about that stone tape thing? That
Yeah.
There was an incident, you know, when I was growing up in Stockport in the house, I heard the footsteps. And you could say, like, okay, Harry Martindale saw that and heard it, an event which happened 2,000 years ago. But my dad told me once, and I couldn't believe this, when we lived in the house, one morning we were late going to school, and my grandmother shouted up the stairs to me and my brothers, would you be ever getting to school? You know?
Yeah.
So my dad had come home from night work and he was sitting having his breakfast in the kitchen, and they both heard it, all three of us, me, Jerry and Pat, come running down the stairs along the corridor and slam the door, and out we went. And you know, my grandmother probably said to my dad, I'll give them a peace of mind right when they go. About 5 minutes later, they heard the very same sounds come down the stairs, and he looked at us and said, did they come back? I said, no. And the steps come down the stairs and run along the corridor and heard the door slam. My dad got up and he said, what's happening? And he went out. We lived on the main road. Nobody about. He heard what he had heard 5 minutes earlier, repeated.
Yeah.
Now, I sometimes wonder if that house had that ability somewhere in that area to record something, and it didn't have to be 200 years in the past. It could do it
Quickly.
there.
Funny enough, we've had this conversation before about the idea of EM fields, so magnetic fields in the location is what records things rather than the physical building.
Yeah.
So when the building's completely gone, you still have that replay. But yeah, almost like an old-fashioned magnetic tape, picking up events and then just replaying them.
I've been in houses and locations, and I would stop and think, oh, I know this place.
Never fully explained.
And it will be gone.
Yeah.
The second you just know.
Yeah. I mean, I went on holiday recently to the Isle of Wight, and I remember when I was younger, we took there quite a lot when I was a child. But I remember we went to a place called Arreton, and there's a place called Arreton Manor. And I remember it distinctly because I knew Arreton Manor. And I remember as a child taking my parents around and I'm telling them what things were and where things were. And it was such a serious case of deja vu. And unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to to go back there because I had the kids and it just weren't the right circumstance at the right time. But I would love to have gone back to see if I felt that again at that place. But I remember that, I say a child, I was probably 9 or 10. And I remember knowing that place inside out, and that was at Arreton Manor. And I knew, and it stuck with me all through these years. Of all the places I've visited, and my parents are quite historic buffs, they like to take you to places, of interest. Of all the places we visited, that's the one place that's really stuck in my mind and really has that memory of, I know this place. I've been here before. But at 9, 10, I know I'd never been there before. That's the point, isn't it? I've no idea what it is. I've never explored past life, but something resonated there.
And
to the age I was as well. I mean, I was ever so young, but I knew that place.
Yeah.
I know, even to this day,
Exactly.
I know I knew that place inside out.
Yeah.
Whether I'd feel that today, a lot older, a lot wiser.
Lot
Yeah.
wise.
Andy.
What is the official sort of the psychotherapist sort of deja vu? What is the official line?
Past lives.
The official kind of quasi-scientific, especially I suppose, it's left-right brain anomaly. That one part of the brain is going faster than the other part, so the other part catches up and has the same experience again a few fractions of a second later.
Yeah.
So it feels like you've been there before, but the key to remembering the subconscious, there's no such thing as time. Events 20, 30, 40 years ago will feel like they were yesterday if they're still emotionally effective. So if you have an experience and you see something and you think, oh, I remember this from, you can't know how far back because there is no time scale in your subconscious. So you can see something and it seems to reoccur and you see the same thing again and think, oh, I recognise this place, I've been here before, I know the feeling, I know what I'm going to see. But your mind's not going at the normal pace because it never does. It doesn't go at clock time of now. Our brains are going at different speeds, different parts go at different speeds. So the two kind of link to each other and give the impression of that you're having the same experience you may have had 30, 40 years ago, but you had it a few seconds ago, or even a second ago. There's a sync.
But what about if I see a ship out there, 17th, 18th century, and somebody going away on a ship which is very,
Yeah.
very precise as being like mutiny on the Bounty type ship, and I'm walking into the sea and drowning. Does that?
One of the funny, I think to it in the car way up here. One of the possible explanations is collective unconscious. The idea that we share a collective deep level of awareness that is interconnected, not just with us living people now, but because minds are connected back in time. We talk about the location stuff again.
Yeah.
You're picking up somebody else's experience who had that experience at that location at the time. Not necessarily yours, but you're seeing it through their eyes, so it can seem like it's your experience.
That's
It's an explanation.
That's
I think.
fascinating.
Yeah,
The thing is, it's just one of the areas we're exploring.
Because
I have another one.
T.C. Lethbridge, have you read T.C.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And he's experience on Ladram Beach in Cornwall, or the cliffs above it, where he went there with his wife, and he got to the view, obviously a nice view from the top of the cliffs, but feeling of absolute depression when you got to the cliff edge, and his wife felt it, and also it was a damp, moist, humid day. And she said to him, "Oh, I can't stand here. I feel horrible." And they moved away from it, and the feeling went.
Yes.
And they found out later that a lot of people had jumped to their deaths from that spot.
Yes, the suicide cliff, yeah.
Yeah.
You're walking into the environment, the energy's at that space, there's at that point, and you're walking into it, your brain connects into it, and you get that feeling of it. Because if you think about it, people describe like a past life experience, and people talk about time slip experiences where they appear to be in the past and observing things around them. Think about the nature of that. What's the difference? In terms of what you're observing and experiencing, is there a difference? Is it that you actually are in the past yourself? Or are you remembering something that's further back than your own lifetime, you're connecting somewhere deeper? Or is it you've been born again? There's no definitive explanation for those experiences, but they definitely happen. I've never had one myself. I know people who've given me stories of where they've been in a building and it suddenly seems to transform around them, and they're seeing just day-to-day events going on. Now, I pick up stuff at locations, and to me, that's what I see. I know I'm not seeing it in front of me, it's in here, I'm seeing it, but it is exactly what is really happening. I mean, one of the classic examples for me was I did an investigation at Alton Towers, the mansion house itself.
Oh, right,
And
yeah.
I was seeing the most bizarre things in there. I was seeing Babylonian statues, Sumerian statues, and Egyptian objects. I'm thinking, that doesn't tie in with this place. What the hell am I seeing? Turns out one of the guys that actually, the Lord, whatever, who lived there, was fascinated by the Middle East and had brought statues back. And they were actually sighted. Some of them at the British Museum. I had no idea. But I was seeing it as if it was there, but I knew it was in my head, not in front of me. Now, some mediums will say, no, I'm there, I'm seeing these things. And I think, it's here. This is doing the work. Doing incredible work.
Is that the similar to, was it Freud or Jung with the chapel in Ravenna when they went in Jung and saw a fresco on the wall of the church, and they loved it, and they wanted to get postcards of it.
Yeah.
But there weren't any postcards of it because it had gone 300 years previously.
Yeah.
They walked into a building and saw something. I mean, it's connections with the Versailles ladies.
Yeah, they had a time slip, didn't they, at Versailles?
Yeah, I mean, I've got Whiting's book here. Peter gave it to me, and people saying, "Oh, there was a fancy dress party going on in the grounds," but they didn't. It's
That would have been logged, though. To be fair, if there had been that kind of occasion, there would be a definitive answer on that one.
Well,
yes, there was a fancy dress going on. That's what you experienced, and think you step back in time. There wasn't. They had a time slip, whatever way you want to look at it, whether or not it was a shared memory.
Still within them, exactly, still in this time, but we're seeing events of the past. Something triggered off that experience.
So whatever that was, they shared that together.
One of the fundamental problems we have is empirical science is still based on what's called the subject-object relations theory. That there are physical objects and there are mental subjects. That those two are fundamentally separated. One of the reasons why quantum physics is so important is because it breaks that down. It says this is nonsense, everything is energy. There is no subject-object, it's still a middle ground between the two. That physical objects are just energy condensed. And if you think of doing anything other than that, you're going back to old-fashioned Newtonian physics, and that needs to be got rid of.
Yeah.
But modern science, a lot of it is still financially driven for a start. It's what can make money, not real research anymore. But unless it abandons that, then we are stuck in a very narrow groove of empirical science, and that's where we're going to be stuck pretty much ad infinitum, because they don't want to break out of that, because it's the financial benefit of making things that seem to work with the notion of subject-object relations, because that's how the world appears to work. But fundamentally, it doesn't work like that, which is why quantum physics is so important, because it is breaking that down. So that's one of the problems we're always going to be stuck with.
It's like, you know, my daughter's boyfriend. He's a physicist.
Yeah.
And we've discussed ghosts around this table, and he said to me, "There's nothing that can't be explained by physics." But I said, "What? But the known laws of physics. What about the unknown laws that we don't know?
Yeah, yeah.
Because if like in my own area, Borley, if the daughters of the Reverend Nun saw that apparition on the lawn that day, they said they did, you know, and we can't be, you know, not being arrogant enough to say, you know, it's a hallucination. Yeah. But it could have been an hallucination, but it could have been, I don't know. It could have been
genuine phenomena as well. We don't know, do we?
I know. It's I think at the end of the day, I've been researching Borley since I was 14, 12. I still don't know. What is going on there. Why does the friends we've got, who's I think as far as I know they still live there, experience footsteps in their garden? They see figures in the house. What's going on? I mean, are they images that are recorded and that they're played back at the right time to the right person in the right place? You know.
I don't know, apart from ley lines side of it, sorry.
Yeah.
Has anyone looked into the actual geology of the land? Do you know?
No, that would be interesting. Colin Wilson's theory is that the land is psychically charged.
Yeah. The geological factors would then come into play a lot more.
Resonances that can be occurring because of the geomagnetics of the place and the stone, the material that's actually in the ground. Yeah.
The stone circles in Britain were put up at certain points because the shaman or the early priest recognised that there was some electromagnetic earth energy, you know, and they thought that putting the stones there could capture it. You know?
Yeah.
And apparently Lethbridge and Colin Wilson, when they went to them stone, they lived down in Cornwall, both of them, and you could go up to some of these stones and you put your hand against them and you would get a sensation of tingling.
Oh, completely.
Yeah. There's something coming out of the earth which must connect here. I suppose I was watching a programme with Tony Robinson the other day, and he was walking the Icknield Way, and he got to Royston, and there's a chapel in Royston. I didn't know this, an underground chapel full of medieval carvings. Nobody knows it.
Royston Caves, I've heard of them.
Yeah. And apparently the ley lines, it's a Roman road and an Icknield Way, and they cross at this point. So he's got this chap who's a dowser, and they went down, and as soon as he walked in, the rods just spun round. And he was very, pragmatic about what was causing it. He said it's something in here it's making he didn't put it down to supernatural means.
No, he put it down to a more psychological side of things. Except what we've talked about this before, whereas your conscious is only picking up like roughly 40 pieces of information here and now, but your subconscious is taking in a hell of a lot more. So whether or not that's translating through your body into the rods or pendulum or whatever dowsing tool you're using is subjective.
I agree. I agree that the paranormal is all this stuff, and there's a lot to do up here. But Paul and I wrote a book called Extreme Hauntings because I said to Paul, let's write a book that makes people frightened, wanted to they don't want to turn the light off at night, you know. And so we dug up all the most terrifying ghost stories we could find.
Excellent.
And there's one, I remember reading it years ago. It's called the North Fleet Horror.
Oh yeah.
And I thought, oh my God, this is like something out of Hollywood. Ordinary house in Northfleet near Gravesend, and a couple moved in there. This is 1965, and they hear footsteps during the day, and the mother and daughter are in the front room. There's footsteps and like furniture being moved above. So they call in the husband. He says, "There's someone up there," you know. He goes up. There's nobody there. His wife is getting really kind of freaked out by this, and he tries to calm her nerves, saying, "It's next door. It's a semi-detached property, and what we're hearing is what they're doing in their bedroom, right?" So okay, right. One night, they just had they got a little girl. She's 9, and a baby, which is I think about a year old. So one night the mother gets up, she hears the baby crying, goes into the bedroom, tends to her and all that, settles her down, and comes back into the bedroom, and just goes to get back in bed. She lies down in bed, and she looks up, and a little girl appears in the doorway, and her daughter's name is Diane. She said, "Diane?" And this little girl started to walk towards the bed. But as she did so, towards the bed, she turned into an adult and leant over the mother, and the mother just screamed.
Yeah.
Woke her husband up, and the apparition vanished. And they left the next morning. Now, this is a time when the young family wanted the house. You don't make yourself homeless. You're not staying there. Next family moved in. He was a tugboat man. You imagine, quite a tough guy. Goes to bed one night, and he hears footsteps on the landing outside the bedroom. Somebody moving about. Goes outside, looks, nobody there, and he comes back into the bedroom, gets into bed, and the bed starts shaking and lifting up, exorcist fashion. And he said, "Oh, for God's sake!" And he looks to his left, and there's an apparition standing there, a woman, but she's got no head. This guy, they left. They just got
I'm
out
not
of the house.
surprised. Yeah.
And you think, hang about, these people, you don't leave, as I say, you don't leave a house and all that. So it was left empty, and the lady who lived in the other part of the semi-detached property, her husband used to go away at weekends, and she'd be left on her own. And she could hear footsteps and knockings in the house coming next door. She thought, "Oh, who's there?" But there was nobody there.
Yeah.
And then one night she was in bed on her own, and banging coming up underneath her bed. She said it sounded like a kind of medicine ball, an old that you
Yeah,
use
they're
in the
really
gym,
heavy balls. Yeah.
trying to knock through.
Oh my goodness, that's a large knock then.
Yeah, and she fled, went and didn't go back. But that house is, you know, as far as I know, hasn't experienced any paranormal phenomena since. That period between 1965 and 1966, you could say, you know, a poltergeist or an entity thought, we'll choose that one and have some fun. But what struck me about it was, and this is the argument I have with people who say that stone tape theories, and which I do believe in, that you do, the recordings can replay them.
I agree. No, I'm a firm believer of that.
But sometimes when a ghost has intelligence, it
Yes.
seems to be aware of you as
Yeah.
much as you are aware of it. Now that is,
Scary.
yeah. I mean, there's getting back to Enfield about the pillars on the roof. You know, like that they found pillars off on the bedroom on the roof, or was it a ball that went through the wall of their house and ended up. So obviously that physical object going through a physical wall and ended up in. that completely explodes the whole physical world, doesn't it? I think.
Absolutely, but it actually fits in what's called quantum tunnelling. Where
Yeah.
exactly that
Yeah.
happens. Subatomic particles passing through apparently solid objects and
Yeah.
coming out the other side.
I mean,
Okay,
quartz-
it's a different sized object, but of course it's still made up of quanta, the tiny subatomic particles.
Yeah.
Everything's made of those.
Because there
Yeah.
seems to be two different sort of avenues of physics or science. You know, there's the physical world. You know, planets go around the sun, and we can measure all this, and this is how it works, and we know this. But then there's the sun, the top.
This is what was exactly saying.
and they do seem to be totally separate.
That's the problem.
Yes.
There is no gratification theory. They can't be because they're fundamentally different things. It's like trying to figure out when you combine fire and water, you produce a third substance, or a unification of fire and water. You can't unify fire and water.
No,
It's
it's
impossible.
opposites of the same
Yeah, This is
thing.
the thing. You have Einstein-Newtonian physics with a bigger than atomic scale, but go below atomic scale, it all goes out the window.
Yeah.
Everything you think you know is wrong, and it is. That's a classic statement. A friend of mine is actually a doctorate in physics now, PhD, whatever. But when he did his obviously A-levels at school, went to university. The first lecture they had, the lecturer said, everything you learned in your A-level class, check out the window, it's wrong. It's structured in a way that you can learn it to pass, but now you learn real physics. Forget that stuff, it's wrong. And he said, it was like, bloody hell. And it is his field, is in quantum physics. That's what I haven't seen him for years, but that's his theory of his field. He works in quantum physics. He's trying to, and it's getting to the point. It's been almost a battle between the two schools of thinking that if you expand quantum physics to the post-atomic scale, nothing makes sense. Everything you know goes completely out the window and goes totally wrong. But there are certain rules, if you like, or what's what I'm looking for, continuations or setups that are in the bigger atomic scale level that definitely absolutely fundamentally, like relativity, works. Fundamentally, absolutely relativity works.
Yeah.
It doesn't work at the subatomic level. This is the problem, and that's why Einstein didn't even like the notion of quantum entanglement. He called it spooky action from a distance. He just thought it was nonsense.
Yeah, I often wonder about the thinking of scientists, because the way we learn about things and learn about the universe is that you investigate them. But scientists seem to have, I think Peter put it, it's like, evidence seems to work in medicine or any other kind of discipline, but it's never taken on board in the paranormal. You could present any amount of evidence for ghosts and it would be rejected.
Yeah.
Because they start off from this kind of point of view that it didn't happen because it can't happen.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
You know.
They won't accept the
Yeah, I agree.
premise of the argument they refuse to accept. You can't, if you can't come to an agreement on the basis of what you've done, it was about ghosts earlier, if you can't come to an agreement on the basis of your experimentation, then you're not going to go anywhere. And then it doesn't work. It comes back to the same problem. If you cannot replicate it under scientific conditions in the laboratory, it doesn't exist. And that's
And
what it
I
is.
don't think we will ever recreate a ghost in the traditional haunting kind of way in a laboratory.
No. I mean, the closest we've ever really got was the Phillips experiment, of course.
But that was a mental manifestation of a spirit.
But it was manifesting by itself without them making it happen later
True.
on, and was showing greater phenomena that they planned for it to be doing.
True.
But it began as a thought experiment, a literal thought experiment. We're going to create this experiment.
But that's what I mean. It started off as, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to achieve. The fact that that took on a life of its own kind of suggests the power that humans can have when they work together.
It's a famous quote by Toltius on the Ket. It basically said, it's all in your mind, but you've no idea how big your mind is.
Yeah.
And that's basically what it comes down to for me. That it is a mental phenomenon, but the phenomenon scale is huge. It's way beyond this little object sitting
Yeah, I love the quote from Wilson's that man's whole being is like a vast mansion, but he chooses to live in a box in the basement.
Yes. Yes,
You know,
very much so.
And until he comes out of that,
Yeah.
you know, and starts, because Wilson, he doubted ghosts. He thought that he loved ghosts. He read about Borley and stuff like that. But until he started to look into it, he thought, no, there is something here. And you've read it, Poltergeist. You've read it,
I know all these books.
yeah.
He's a prolific writer, to say the least.
I didn't meet him. We used to email, and he was after. The Outsider. His first book.
Yes, that's for me. His philosophers had said that as well.
Yeah.
It wasn't on the curriculum, and I read it when I was studying existentialism. That's basically the English existentialist. And it was very.
Yeah. But I pick up these other books. I mean, Frankenstein's Castle, the split brain, his split brain book, which is great. But he writes in such an accessible way. He could write an Arabic maths book, and you'd find it exciting. You know,
it's like his book on the occult like that, with that almost not a believer at all until you do more and more research. Thought, hang on, they're really something to this stuff. And again, we've talked about this before. That's about manipulation of energy. It's the same. It's the other way around from sort of paranormal phenomena, where you're observing energy doing strange things. With occult stuff, you're actually causing manipulation and manifestation. So it's like back to front, but it's still the same kind of thing. And this is not the recording; this is coming off the recording. But I do a lot of work. I do lots of ritual stuff.
Yeah.
And you create effect, and you can observe the effect, but you have to make sure you then turn the effect off. It's not like closing down, but you just have to make sure it doesn't carry on doing weird shit you don't want it to be doing. So you do things for a very specific effect, then you stop and say, right, that's as far as I want it to go. Now I'm going to dispel all this stuff. And it is, you're working with energy, but it's like you turn something on. If you don't turn it off, it just keeps running.
Yeah.
So you do have to do that, and I do sometimes. I mean, I've been to locations where I know ritual activity is taking place, and they've just left the taps running, and you can feel it in the atmosphere. A classic example, there's a place called the Galleries of Justice in Nottingham. It's very popular for event companies to use, and I've done dozens and dozens there. And they've been a group on a Friday night, and we come on a Saturday, and there's one section which is quite haunted, which is the women's bathing area. We walked in there and it felt totally different, and you just knew something had happened. We spoke to the guard, he was in the guard office stage, and he said, yeah, afterwards I walked around the church, there were bloody candles in there, and they were specifically told not to burn candles. And I said to him, what colour were the candles? Oh, I don't know, they were quite dark. And I thought, they went up to something, and they've caused an effect, and the effect is still there, because we could feel it. It felt completely different, but it was that one night it felt like that. Yeah. I've been into Coalhouse Fort, it's on the Thames Estuary.
No, yeah, I know it.
I've been there.
It's quite a famous one now, because again it's a public events place. It's recently closed down again, but back in the 70s and 80s it was derelict. It was fenced off, but you could get in there really easily. Yeah. And there were people, because I used to be involved with good earthquakes, I used to investigate occult phenomena as well as ghost phenomena back in the 80s, and we got several reports from people who said they were seeing fires burning in the fort, and they just felt it wasn't just kids mucking about. And we went in there, and the atmosphere in this courtyard area was unbelievable. It was so heavy and dense, and we thought, this ain't no normal ghost, this is something else going on here. So people do carry out ritual activity that does have a very real effect, and is left behind. And if you don't shut these things down, they carry on going. So the idea that some ancient locations might have had a lot of ritual prayer going on, that kind of thing, it's charging up the atmosphere, that then the atmosphere is still like it. Like you're saying in Borley Rectory and the church, because it's an ancient site long before the church, so rituals and activities that have gone on.
Absolutely.
And these things then manifest in ways that we understand. So the idea of seeing the nun fits in with the kind of mindset of the people who were in the area. But if you go back thousands of years before, they might see a white figure.
Yeah.
I think these things can change over the centuries depending on who the observer is.
I agree.
Yeah, because obviously the haunted Borley generates its own folklore as well.
Yeah.
So it becomes distorted and stuff. And but today there would have been a religious worship in place at Borley long before the church was built. And you think, well, why did they put it there?
Yeah. The atmosphere is already charged up for centuries of being used previously. Yeah. Well, a good example of how, again, interpretation can affect the idea of the manifestation. One of the classic ones of Woodchester Mansion, which I've been to a lot in the early 2000s, there was a tall figure that was seen a number of times in the rear corridor of this building. There's been suggestion that he may well be some kind of energy visitation that's to do with ritual activity that definitely happened in the chapel area of Woodchester. Again, in the 60s and 70s it was abandoned. Though again, it was never consecrated as a church, but it's got its own chapel, and that was definitely used. Locals had found all sorts of fires and symbols drawn on the walls, etc. And it was suggested that this dark, tall figure was linked to the activity. In the last few years, people are now describing it as being a slender man. Have you ever heard of the slender man? It's a totally made-up phenomenon that's come from America, and it's a kind of urban mythology story.
Like Mothman.
Oh no, it's a very deliberately created mythology of the Slender Man, and this figure is now being called a Slender Man. It's like an American idea that's been invented in America as a completely made-up story, but it's kind of linked into the general psyche of this being this tall, willowy figure that's been seen, and now this ghost that's been seen in Woodchester, certainly since the early 2000s, is now being called a Slender Man. So it's been adopted into the mythology, and people describe it as being very tall and willowy. I've seen it. It wasn't tall and willow. It was tall, but it was very much a solid figure. The descriptions changed because of the
Yeah, that's fascinating because have you ever heard of the Frank Smythe ghost, the mad vicar of Wapping?
No.
No, that's
Yeah, back in I think it was 1976, 77. Frank, there was that. I think that magazine was Man, Myth and Magic.
Oh, we've got all those. I'll have to look it up.
It might be in there, and he was, and there was a great vogue for the paranormal back in that time, and he decided to invent a ghost to see if he could generate people would start seeing it. So he invented this thing, the ghost.
Sorry, I'm smiling because I've done exactly the same thing. It has exactly worked.
That's basically the Phillips
I've
experiment.
done it myself. In all my books, there's one story which I've invented to see if it and it did. It did in this book.
Absolutely.
Well, Frank Smythe done that, and I love it. The Mad Vicar of Wapping, and he invented a history for him. These sailors would come up to Limehouse, Wapping Steps, and all that, stay in the inns and all that, get drunk, and he had prostitutes who would entertain them, and then come back to their house, and they'd be robbed, bashed on the head, and thrown into the Thames. And you think, yeah, and all that. And Colin Wilson had done a programme on it. I've got it on tape. It's an old series called A Leap in the Dark from the 70s.
What was it?
You remember it, Leap in the Dark?
Yeah, vaguely, yeah.
And they got to the stage where it kind of like exploded. It appeared in this magazine. The press got hold of it, and everybody thought it started saying, "Oh yeah, there's a ghost down there." He said, "Well, hang about, no, this has been invented in the last." He said, "Oh no, my grandfather told me about it." And so they start embellishing it and all this.
Yes, absolutely.
And even Gilly Cooper, the old author,
Yeah.
she was convinced that this ghost was down there.
Absolutely.
And what they did, they got people, they did use a bit of hypnotism
Yeah.
on two ladies, and they told them about the ghost, and they took them to Limehouse, and they walked along the river, and one of them saw the vicar. He said, "Oh, Colin, the camera crew there, I just saw this man, he's like in 18th century clerical stuff, and he had long grey hair and all that." And he said, "What did you see?" And he said, "Well, he was just a horrible man, and he was there, and he was gone." So what Smythe was doing, he said, you can invent a ghost, and it will become part of the folklore. But then again, some bright sparks said, well, perhaps Smythe had actually seen the ghost himself, and he wasn't aware of it. But he started to invent it, because he started to invent it because he had seen it anyway, and it had been buried in his subconscious. So, you can do that. But in that book, I put in a story. I won't tell you which one it is, but people got in touch with me and said, "Yeah, I've seen it." And I said, "That's incredible."
Again, I won't ever reveal which location and which ghost story that I have totally invented, but I did invent it on a particular night and told a few people, and they've told other people, and it's been seen by other people now who I've never met.
No.
And they've reported seeing this particular ghost, this particular location. I think I made that up, but it is. It's Philip. I did it as a Philip experiment. It was to see if you generate, and you can. The energy fields in these certain places allow you to create effect. I'm absolutely convinced of that. The energy is everywhere, but it's stronger and more intense in certain places. Yeah, the Slender Man was an invention by a website called Creepypasta, where they make up urban myths and legends and stories. And there's hundreds of them, but for some reason the Slender Man story, this very, very tall, 8 foot plus, very thin figure dressed often in a black suit or white shirt, black tie. It's totally invented, but it was actually became then part of what's called viral marketing for a film called Slender Man, which the film was dreadful, but the marketing was very, very effective. Remember the Blair Witch Project marketing?
Yeah.
Believe it, especially with Real That's viral marketing. It works brilliantly. It's cheap and it works brilliantly, but it's gone too far now because people are saying they're seeing this figure. And there was a case in America where 2 young girls took a third girl into the woods, basically tried to kill her to summon Slender Man. So when a bit fortunately survived, you can float.
Sometimes I wonder, and if it comes from America, they have to invent their own folklore.
So it's a rather short history. So
but I do remember Blair Witch, and I had the book, which had the everything. The characters in it, the letters, the police reports, and it was a fantastic ruse. And it's the most successful, financially successful film.
From original costing to final figures of takings, it still is. Yeah,
It's huge.
$5,000 it cost.
But it linked into that psychological. What they did, it was incredible, clever marketing.
Did viral marketing on top of it.
Incredible, clever marketing
Very cheap,
on
very
that.
effective.
Yeah.
It was incredibly effective, and this was before I was paranormal investigating. I was sitting in not a circle, but I was doing workshops and stuff like that at the time, and it really linked in. And now looking back, you go, oh yeah, there's a psychological factor.
Yeah.
You
Well,
didn't
it
pick
was-
up on the time if you weren't aware of the power of marketing, and that's the power of marketing and
When it
viralness
premiered
and stuff
at
like
Cannes
that.
Film Festival, they didn't know it was fake.
No.
And the BBC reporter, and she was as white as a sheet. So
Yeah.
she just saw it, and she tried not to swear. She said, I can't believe what I've just seen. This
Yeah.
is a real, true documentary of 3 people.
But they released a
England.
documentary
And
about the Blair
what-
Witch before the film was released,
Yeah.
and that was the power of the
fake program.
yeah.
And maybe
It-
this is better than the film, actually.
yeah, it was.
I have seen
No,
the
I completely
documentary.
agree.
Oh, I was obsessed with it when I first saw it.
So was I, yeah.
Back in the days of doing the stuff with Andy Collins and Earthquakes, we were wandering around the woods late at night.
Yeah.
Things up to
But that
no good.
film-
And we did find them sometimes.
It does link in on a psychological effect. When we've both been, or all of us, I'm sure, at some point have been in woods in the middle of the night and had that, oh my God, kind of experience. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when that film was released, it showed the power of marketing, the power of psychological effect. It really does bring in the power of the mind to it
and
all.
the need for people to want it to be true.
That's true. Yeah, we
know, they
all
want-
want that, don't we?
Because
They
it's,
want to
you know,
believe.
I mean, I've got a great interest in the Romantics from the late 18th century, early 19th century.
Yeah.
And how they reacted against the Industrial Revolution and the destruction of the countryside and stuff like that. And, you know, you find the references in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, you know, warning to man not to play God.
Yeah.
You can't do that. But how they and the great folly builders around, they wanted to build ruined castles.
Yeah.
And one sad thing, a guy in England somewhere in 1940, he wanted to build a folly.
Uh-huh.
And his local authorities had raised their ugly head by that time. And there was no laws in the manor anymore. And they asked him, what is it for? And he said, I just want to look at it from my house. It's up on the hill. Are you going to live in it? No.
No.
It's going to have a roof. No, I'm not putting a roof on it. I'm just going to leave it in a ruined condition.
Yeah.
Is it going to be electric light, gas, water? No. I said, what's it for then? To look at. To look at. Why do you want to look at it? Because I want to look at a ruin
Yes.
on the hill. They couldn't grasp what he meant.
Yeah.
And I thought, my God, they're dead. They're dead people.
Yeah.
Romantically, they've lost it. You know,
Yeah.
and they wouldn't let him do it because they thought it was ridiculous. You know, whereas 150 years before, we could have.
Everything's utility had to have a purpose and a meaning.
Yeah.
It couldn't be artistic just for the sake of it.
Yeah.
Thankfully, that tends to be changing now, I think. But certainly in the post-war period, there was definitely that kind of, because there's so much destruction, particularly in the East End of London, and the country was bankrupt, things had to have a purpose.
Yes.
If they could be done or built or made, they had to have
Yeah.
a purpose. The idea of art for its own sake, which that would be art. Oh, we can't do that. That's a waste of money, a waste of resources. We're limited. So unfortunately, that was a bit of a mindset. So yeah, it's ridiculous that we just say, well, if I can't think of a reason why you're doing it, you can't do it.
Because culturally, the ghost story, today, the modern ghost is the poltergeist, whereas the Victorian ghost was the Phantom Lady in the foggy graveyard.
Yeah.
And also that culturally, that's got something to do with our modern day outlook.
Our perception, yeah.
Because the poltergeist is a violent, destructive being, whereas something like the Woman in Black, the Cheltenham ghost, was extraordinary. I've been to the house and. Have you read the one, The Cheltenham Ghost, The Woman in Black?
I know the novel story, but only the other
Not
one.
house in Cheltenham. Family moved into it, upper middle class family, 1863, 73. and there was mum and dad and sisters, 5 sisters and 1 son, and the one main chronicler of events started to see a woman in black wandering around the house at night, and she would follow her and down the stairs and all that, and she'd disappear. And she couldn't figure it out, and the maids said, "I've heard footsteps outside my room at night." And then it's probably got the most extraordinary viewing or apparition in the history of psychological research. This woman, I forget her name now, my brain's gone, but she was in a room with her parents and her brother, and saw this apparition of the woman in black walking into the room and stand looking out of the drawing room window for 30 minutes.
That's an awful long time.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a huge time.
And you think, what on earth is going on here? And then she turned around and walked back out. And the lady followed her, the girl followed her. And she disappeared again. And it's one of the cases which caused great controversy in psychical research circles, because Peter Underwood said it wasn't haunted at all. They think it was the husband of the house had this floozy who he kept in a room at the top, and she would come out at night, stretch her legs I suppose, and wander around, and but then again, Paul and I had difficulty with it, because Paul and I believed it was a ghost. Peter said no, it was. And I said, well, Pete, how was it that she could walk through tripwires that they put across the stairs?
Yeah.
She went down the stairs and never broke any of the cords that were put across. And then other people started to see her, not connected with the house. People from across the road would see this woman in the garden. And this guy came over and said, I saw this sad woman crying. Has anything happened? Has anything happened?
Yeah.
I said, no, not at all. I said, who's this woman? She said, a woman in black. And then over the years, the apparition started to fade. So she was a solid form at the beginning, and then a shape, then a misty shape, and then the footsteps would be heard, and then the footsteps, the audibility of it would diminish, and eventually it would fade away, and up to the energy of the horn had gone.
Thank you for joining us, and we hope that you enjoyed the special interview with Eddie and Sue. As you can tell, it was an absolutely fantastic weekend. We plan on doing that again for you, definitely.